Alright, welcome to Comic Wars. Think of the show as Fight Night, but without the mess of actual combat. The data will speak for itself before the outcome, but in case it doesn't, we will break all of it down in the outcome. At the end of the show, of course. Without further ado, let's dive right into our first competitor. Scratch that. Scratch that. We need to go and get right into the overview. We don't have any guests tonight, so we can already skip that. So as you guys know, the details, we're going to break them down. Background details, so who they are, what their daytime job is, if they have some kind of career, maybe some personality defects or traits that are just really unique to their character. That we're going to look at height, weight, all this, how this plays a factor into a fight. For those that are avid MMA or boxing or some kind of martial arts fan, you'll understand exactly why they have different weight classes and why those matter. As for the feats, we're going to go and compare strength details, speed and agility, so how fast they can dodge, how quickly they can make it over to an opponent in the shortest amount of time possible. Their durability, so how much damage can they take before they just call it quits. Their gadgetry, since these characters don't have any superpowers whatsoever. These guys, they're mass vigilantes, they like to use their gadgets, so we're going to break that down. And of course, we're going to be looking at their combat capabilities. We're going to be looking at their martial prowess, how they fight, what kind of martial arts they use. We're going to break all of it down. And because I did create the Crow character, I'll actually break down which martial arts he knows, because I actually have the details and all this. For those that were familiar with my work and were able to actually pick up any of my trade paperback I had at a few conventions I believe it was called Rain City Case Files, episode 1, I believe it was something like that. But it contained the first 3 issues of Crow, contained all the Rain City origins that went along with it, the perspectives, or sorry, not Rain City origins, but perspectives from Rain City, articles that went along with it, and it contained some case files about other characters, newspaper clippings, things like that. It's just things that were unique and exclusive to those that actually purchased the paperback. After we analyze the feats, we're going to go get into data analysis, and we're going to break down as much as we can in the shortest amount of time possible. There's some data I'm still crunching. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time during the week to go and get it all crunched. So, depending on the outcome of this battle, we're going to go over the characters' pros and cons, and then, of course, if we had a guest, we'd go over the analysis, what they thought, of course, at that point, and then we'd go over the outcome and break that down. And then we would, of course, break down next week's first episode on Monday. All right. So, further ado, let's get into the first part I really want to get into, which is the creative origins of each of these characters. Antiman in the Totally Naked Man series, and Crow from the Crow series, and everything in Rain City that goes on, perspectives from Rain City Origins, all this. Both got their creative origins from the real-life superhero that was in Portland, is now retired, but he went also by the name Antiman. So you can see Mythos Imprint, their Antiman looks identical. So there's that, of course. And then, of course, you have the character on the right, Crow, which is my creation, which doesn't look anything really like him, but it is where the origin lies. Just based on creativity and all this, just his design, types of criminals he's gone after, things like that. So there's a lot more creativity going on in the way of how Crow is set up versus Antiman, which is a parody of, well, Antiman. So, all right. So, want to get that out of the way just to show this. This is why they're going to appear very, very similar in some things. Not to mention the person who created the parody version of Antiman, the real life superhero, is Ilya King, Mythos Imprint, good friend of mine. We both decided to go and do a little creativity with this and create a character based off of this character here, Antiman, the real life superhero. So, all right, let's get into our first combatant, which is Antiman. All right, so for those that are curious about the Antiman character, you can find him at nakedmancomics.com. You're going to find his biggest issue outside of a couple episodes that he appeared in alongside Totally Naked Man or Zeta Man. He also appeared in the Totally Naked Man coloring book, and he was featured in there pretty prominently. But on top of that, he was also in Naked Man comics. I don't remember which issue, but he was in a Naked Man comics issue titled Antiman v Icarus, where he fought up against his former sidekick Icarus. All right, as for Antiman, who he is, his real name is Danny Parker. We don't have any age characteristic on him. We don't know how old he is. His height, just like most of the Totally Naked Man characters, his height varies. He's roughly between 6'2" and 6'8". As for his weight, we don't know how heavy he is or light. As for his occupation, we know he's a full-time vigilante, and he operates in Southeast Rose City. Now, Rose City is essentially a parody. It's almost like an exact duplicate, really, of Portland, Oregon. So he operates on the southeast side. His headquarters is actually located in the Tweaker Caves, which is underneath the McLaughlin Bridge. We get to see that when Totally Naked Man and Zeta Man and Extremely Conservative Woman end up seeking out Antiman's help in a case. And that is in an episode Journey into the Mystery. As for his personality, we know that he is egotistical, loyal to his friends, very high attention to details. We get to see that especially in Detective Skills and Back Alley Delicacies. Those two episodes show a lot of that off. As for some miscellaneous info, he's had many sidekicks. Every single one of them has been arrested. They're all just basically they end up being bad guys every time. He's an avid gamer. You can see from his gaming computer, which we'll show here in a second. We can see that's an episode Heroic Archivist. And he has a filing system for cases and other information, strictly paper. He doesn't want anything that's online or anything like this. Very, very old school. Not that he doesn't know technology. Clearly he does, because he is a gamer and he does have a giant gaming computer. So technology is something that he is at least comfortable with. We got to see that once again in Heroic Archivist. But he also has a very, very poor diet, which we got to see in Back Alley Delicacies. So for some examples, we get to see right here, he loves fried foods, deep fried foods. He believes this deep frying, this vat of hot oil is something that could potentially rival that of 7-Eleven. As for the Tweaker Caves, it's right here. All the details about that are right in there. And we get to see his conversation about sidekicks right here. And his love for video games, you can see down there on the bottom left. So just a few examples there. As for his feats, we know Antiman, his strength, we know two things here. So he's got a strong grip and lifting capabilities. We know this from Goodbye Pie Man. I'm going to show this example so you guys don't, that way we can just give a quick comparison real quick. You can see over here on the left side, we see that he is lifting and holding on to Pieman. If you read what it says up here in the top right, what Antiman is saying to Pieman is he's saying you're greasy, or you're really greasy or whatever, and it's hard to hold on. But if you were to look at who Pieman is, he is a parody of Skyman, the real life superhero up in Auburn, Washington, used to be Seattle, Kent area. And you can see from his size here, I don't know his exact weight, but if we had to go and look at it, I would argue he's probably between 300 and 350 pounds at this point right here, which is the exact one that he's based on here. So holding him out from his chest and all this, you're talking a pretty good amount of strength to be able to do such a feat as that. As for his durabilities, we know this is really the only details we have. Is he's got a duck cloth cape, which is it's got a pretty high cut resistance. So like slashing things, I guess. Can it be cut? Yes. It's not bulletproof by any means, but it's lightweight and it can kind of fend off a knife, but it's very, very thick fabric, and so it can provide extra protection than just cloth. All right, so, and the rest of what he wears is clothing. As for his speed and agility, he dodged a charging Pieman and the Rev from close range. We got to see that in artful dodge. He also dodged Icarus in the anti-fight. So there's also, or I believe it was on the episode anti-fight at least. So he was able to dodge, or not dodge, but I quickly come after him immediately after being slammed in the head. As for durability as well, we could also look at that. He was able to tank what looked like a Icarus, who is also very, very fit. He's every chance he gets victory, he does push-ups on. So his pushing power and pushing and pulling should be at least somewhat decent, considering he's also a bit smaller than Antiman, size-wise and all this. So, but he is very fit, so could he arguably be able to hurt somebody, or hurt Antiman by slamming him in the head, or sorry, not head, but neck with some kind of a club? Yes, he could. It would hurt a lot, but he quickly, just right after he got hit, just got up and flew at him, but Icarus is incredibly fast, so he was able to quickly dodge that as well. As for his gadgetry, he has a defective grapple gun. It literally doesn't work. That's his only gadget. As for his combat capabilities, we know his martial prowess, judo, throw, and we get to see he's a bit of a brawler. He likes to throw hooks and jabs. That's all we really get to see. We never really see him with any kicks or anything. So we're looking at, he's a bit of a brawler. As for his ingenuity, he just sneaks very quietly. We get to also see that with grappling hooks, that episode. All right, and just to show those examples off again, we get to see artful dodge here. We get to see, this is his sneaking capabilities, who's able to get behind these guys right after he gets up. On top of that, they don't even notice he's there. He goes right up and he scares them. As for the anti-fight, it's right here. Icarus leaps onto him and he just quickly just throws him over his shoulder and then just gives him a really good hard right hook, knocking him down. But he doesn't fling him very far, so his strength there is actually pretty debatably low. As for him being able to quickly leap, we get to see he is hit right here, and right after that he says you or something like this, and then leaps at him. And then of course he's easily tricked at times, especially in the heat of the moment. So, as for some extra examples, we also have He's actually a pretty skillful detective. Nothing really too high quality, but he's very, very perceptive on some things. When he takes on the case of searching out this group called the Beta Males, which is run by Icarus, which is actually hijacked initially by Icarus. He ends up he goes looking for them, and he quickly finds them. He finds a flyer, is able to examine it. He knows that he can basically track down the print shop, be able to get the information that way, but instead he just looks up, he's looking around, and he sees it right above, deduces, okay, well, this is weird, they're beta men, or they're beta males. If anybody's familiar with the term beta males, I'm not going to get into it, but he ends up discovering that this guy's hideout is actually on top of a burlesque club on the Hawthorne Boulevard area of Rose City. So, and then he deduces exactly what it really is, why they're just so angry, and essentially it's just because they can't woo women because their personalities all suck, apparently. So, that is what we have for Antiman. But what do we have for Crow? So, as for Crow, real name, Daniel Parker. Age, 21. That's in his timeline, which is in 2010. When his comics, when Crow 1 through 4 was all in 2010. He is 6'6". He weighs approximately 250 pounds. That's without his suit on. With his suit, it's another 50 pounds or so, bringing up to a grand total of 300 pounds in his suit. His occupation, he's a vigilante full-time. He literally doesn't have any other time for anything else. His headquarters is actually in his father's, or his deceased father's, abandoned scrapyard, which is called Parker Scrap. His area of operation is all of Rain City. Now, as for his personality, he has a confidence that could easily be mistaken for egotism. Just going over it, he is just very high in himself. That's where the cockiness comes in, is he's very, very quick to kind of just, get really cocky with people. Yeah, what are you thinking? You can't take me, kind of thing. Gets way ahead of himself, even in Rain City Origins, where a lot of other details about his personality come into play. He's a bit of a tragic hero. So, but I'm not just going to go and share all of that because, well, you guys can read about his tragedy. Does it affect why he did this? Yes, that's the only reason. That was because his girlfriend in high school when he was 16 was assaulted, and he sought out the perpetrators, found out she wasn't assaulted. She brought it on herself. It wasn't. It was mutually decided. I'll put it that way. And he ended up beating up the basically guys that were innocent. He confronts her. She admits it was a lie and that he is just nothing but... He just, he looked good, essentially is what it was. And he was depressed. His mother died. And shortly after that, or shortly before that, actually. And then, so he ended up running away, severely depressed. And for 2 weeks, he just kind of hid out in his dad's abandoned scrapyard. Just kind of ate when he needed to, all this, and then... But he was being watched by a group of vigilantes, but you could really just argue they're just nothing but assassins. Called the Death Gods, and what ended up happening was they took him under their wing. They got to see firsthand how intelligent he is and how intuitive he is, and so they basically just kind of took him under the wing, and he quickly rose to the ranks. I'm not going to expand on that because there's more on that hasn't even come out in comics yet. So you guys will have to read the comics, go and get the rest of that. But as for what we got from Crow's issue 1 through 4, lots of stuff. But he is incredibly quick-witted, arguably giving Spider-Man for a run for his money when it comes to how witty he is in combat. He's constantly cracking jokes at his opponents, at enemies, and at villains, constantly. And even at times does crack jokes at fellow heroes as well. As for his feats, we have a lot more on because I can give you exact details. There's lots and lots of it. When it comes to his strength, we don't have any like lifting or throwing strength. Not a whole lot really in the comics because he's just very quick to strike. He's more of a striker rather than a defensive kind of character. So, but he's got very, very high striking power. You can see in every single one of his fights from Crow's issue 1 through 4. Quickly be able to dispatch people with just one punch. You could debate he is more or less a one-punch man, if you will, but he doesn't shatter anybody, nothing like this. As for his durability, he wears carbon fiber plates on top of a Kevlar suit. And to see just how much damage he can take, he was actually it wasn't his intention, but he was punched by Freak Show so hard that it cracked his carbon fiber plates, and at the same time, he was thrown back against a wall that was over 10 feet behind him. And he just got off, shrugged it off, and went right to taking down Freak Show. But the force to crack the Kevlar or the carbon fiber plates takes quite a bit, as you're looking at a tensile strength of 10. There's more to come about that later, potentially. As for his speed and agility, he's able to consistently catch thrown hatchets since the Clownface Gang, which contains Freak Show, the Hatchet Man, Clownface, and the Jester, and several other goons that work for them. They're constantly, they've got hatchets, they've got, some of them got guns, smileys, which is just a chain, the lock on it. They're consistently trying to hit him with things like that, and he's consistently able to outmaneuver every single time, especially the hatchets. He's got feats of actually catching it through smoke. On top of that, also be able to go and catch them when they're thrown at him while he's charging. Just bam, catch him and throw him back, and he is very consistent with that. So that's incredibly agile. But he's also avoided a lunging attack and a slashing attack at the same time while countering lunge attack. He was able to essentially do a, what's it called, a back handspring? Flung himself backward, caught himself on his hands at the same time, kicked up and was able to knock out the Neurosyphics, which is the goon that lunged at him. And he's also got some paralyzing claws, so it was a good thing he did that. And he also caught a smiley chain with, or smiley, which is a chain with a lock at the end of it, around his van brace. Did it on purpose just to go and basically yank it out of the way. As for his combat capabilities, we can already see that there's a lot already that was already stated. For his martial prowess, we know he's got more of an acrobatic kind of fighting style. So he's jumping around all the time. He's doing all these things to get himself into specific positions so he can quickly dispatch his opponents. As for his ingenuity, well, his cape can be used as a whip, even able to grab things out of people's hands and yank them away. He's immune to sprays and gases, and we can see that just from looking at him. The grayish kind of silver mouth plate and all this, actually, it's a filter, and nothing can get through it. Gas, no, it's neutralized and everything. Just think like having like a rebreather, essentially. But as for his gadgets, we know he's got a parachute/glide cape. You can see that with Crow's issue 1, page 16, Crow issue 3, page 3. And he always carries 5 flash pellets with him. We get to see this with Crow number 1, page 21, Crow number 3, page 14, Crow number 4, page 13. And he carries 5 smoke pellets with him. We get to see this in Crow issue 1, page 18, Crow issue 2, page 15, and Crow issue 4, page 20. So, that's what everybody brings to the fight here. So, what are your guys' thoughts? What do you guys think? Who do you think wins this fight? I'll give you guys about 1 minute. Give me your thoughts. I'm curious. All right. Let's get right into the outcome since we don't, well, we got the data analysis. Kind of we need to go over. So, when we're looking at this, whoops, we look at the feats. Antiman has got a strong grip and lifting capabilities. We have proof of this. So he's going to be more on the defensive here. As for durability, well, he loses straight up. He has no chance durability wise against Crow. Crow's armored. He's also got greater feats by being able to be hit by Freak Show, who was roughly in the comic, it looked to be about, give or take, about 12 feet away and was able to get to him within, give or take, like a second. Pretty quick. It's not super quick, but it's pretty quick. He's able to just quickly just lunge at him and boom. And it caught Crow on, totally caught him off guard. That's why he was able to be slammed against the wall like that. Broke his plates, and he just got up and shrugged it off and got right back into the fight. That would have been enough to basically knock the wind out of anybody. But he has the endurance to be able to continue on. So durability easily goes to Crow on that one. As for strength, you're going against, you've literally got somebody that's got just basic street fighting skills here and can do can basically just, we know that he's probably got a little Krav Maga experience because, well, it's alleged or alluded to that he does train with extremely conservative women. So you could argue he probably has a little Krav Maga experience. And then and he also doesn't want to spar against her. He doesn't want to take part in the training exercise with her. Seemed even a little fearful. So comes to Krav Maga and all this, he's probably nowhere near her capability, and she's not highly skilled in it, but she's skilled. So you could argue this basically is a brawler that can throw people over his shoulder. Crow's a striker. He's much faster. And he's able to, we'll have to get into this a little bit later, but when it comes down to it, strength capabilities, they're probably, I would argue Crow's probably a little more, just on his striking power, but as for just strength, we don't really have any feats of strength, what he can lift, right? As for speed and agility, Antiman has dodged a charging Pie Man and the Rev from close range. And if we were to go look at Crow, whoops, wrong one, background feats, whoops. As for agility, he's able to consistently catch thrown hatchets, and he's avoided a lunging attack and slashing attack at the same time, and also catches Smileys just because he's a lot faster. We're talking, and if you looked at the people that he's usually faced off against, they're a lot more fit. So even at close range, you could still argue Crow he'd run circles around him at that point. We've got proof of his. I do apologize, as I did want to give feat examples for Crow as well. I didn't have enough time to go and finish it. especially with work and everything else going on, didn't have enough time. And then when we got, let's see, durability, he's there. Combat capabilities, that's the next one we need to get into, is combat capabilities. So you've got judo, throw, and brawler. That's all Antiman brings to him is ingenuity. He can sneak very quietly. Well, you look over at Crow. He's an acrobatic fighting. He uses an acrobatic fighting style. He's going to use his speed, strength, and his capabilities, which includes Muay Thai. He knows some Krav Maga, just a little bit, just basic stuff. But you can always argue that could be picked up from other martial arts, right? Just kind of altered, and that's how you get your Krav Maga, essentially. But I digress. He knows some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a very good boxer. He's done some kickboxing. So, and he can use weapons, but he's always unarmed. As for ingenuity, well, he sneaks as well, but there's no point even really putting on. This is more than enough to go and take him down. On combat capabilities, Crow hands down has this. Because he's also, he can use his cape as a whip. His cape's actually got a use in combat. So, cloth versus this, and he's got a cape that he can flip around and do all sorts of things with. And he's also armored. Okay, so he's basically won in every single category. Strength would be the only one to be debatable. As for gadgetry, you have a guy with a defective grapple gun. Keep in mind it's a parody character. So I want to do this comparison because that's really the big thing here. They're based on the same character. But Crow comes with his parachute and glide cape, which if he was going to fall, let's say they would fight on top of a building, he's going to survive. Chances are very, very likely he'll survive. He could dive and then just... and he's got flash pellets, which are just like flashbang grenades. And then you got smoke pellets, which... From the comics, we see that it's a big old cloud of smoke. He's able to go and get off within just a second or two, at most. And he carries 5 of those. So at that point, if he can go and catch thrown hatchets and all this, he's definitely got better reflexes and you could argue heightened senses, while Antiman does not. So hands down in gadgets, that easily goes to Crow. All right, so... That's how that all breaks down. We don't even have to do the math, honestly, because it breaks down this very, very simply. And I do mean very, very simply. Crow wins. And it's 100% of the time. There's not a single scenario where Antiman would actually come out on top of Crow. Not a single one, based on the data alone. And we don't even, like I said, we don't even have to calculate it out. Flash pellets are going to stop every single thing Antiman's going to be able to do. Coverings over his eyes are just screen. So he'd have to close his eyes, but he's also got smoke pellets. So he could use a smoke and a flash, and then you could easily just argue that would be enough just to basically confuse him. Even if that weren't able to confuse him. Crow he's a much faster fighter, and he notoriously knocks people out with one hit. Plus, he's armored. So there's not really a whole lot that... In fact, there's nothing Antiman can actually do going against Crow. At all. All right. So as for next week's matchup, that's going to be an interesting one. I'm getting to it. Don't worry. Next week's matchup is going to be a very, very interesting one. It's going to be Alucard from Castlevania versus Blade from Marvel. That is going to be a very, very interesting battle. But thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys Monday night for some more Comic Wars.